Hello, I am Dr. Randall Bell. We're here at Core IQ, where we learn the key skills we all need to know, but we often don't learn in school. Things like goal setting, time management, etiquette, conflict resolution. And today's episode is epic because we're going to learn how to get high. And with me is Dr. Daniel Headrick. Dr. Headrick is a medical doctor. He has his degree from UCLA, which happens to be the finest institution in the history of the world. And that has nothing to do with that. That's where I did my grad work. But anyway, Dr. Headrick has successfully detoxed over 17,000 patients at Hoag Hospital here in Orange County, at the Laguna Beach Hospital here. I mean, there is nobody on planet Earth better qualified to talk about drugs, alcohol, and more importantly, the authentic ways to get high than Dr. Headrick. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And when we tell people to get high, what does that mean?
Well, I think that's a good question because when I bring this up, I do talks at middle schools and stuff and kind of present it like that just to get their curiosity and attention. They really, I think the audience and kids kind of think, wait, what are you talking about? How do you get high? Of course, you're talking about a chemical, right?
Right.
They kind of jump to that right away. You're talking about taking a chemical.
Right.
No, there's like tons of ways to get high in life.
Right.
You know, but as the time goes on in 8th, 7th, middle school, high school, you talk about natural highs and passion and people really lose their enthusiasm for natural highs. Or they forget that you can actually do that.
Okay, so you're a doctor of medicine, an MD. Right. I'm a doctor of sociology. So you have a lot of terminology I don't really know. We're talking about endorphins and dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. Yeah. Go through the chemistry a little bit.
Well, there's about 7 main categories of molecules of emotion.
Okay.
You know? One way that drugs work is pretending to look like one. The primary one is endorphins. That's the primary one that gives you a real kick and a high.
So what drugs kick off
Well, those are opiates. That's how opiates work.
Okay.
Heroin, pain pills, Percocet, Oxycontin, Norcos. All the opiates work by pretending to look like your own endorphins. Right. You actually have a part of your brain that pumps out these endorphins. Okay. And it was the first molecule of emotion that was ever captured. For years they knew that the brain created moods by passing these molecules of motion around. Okay. But they captured one when I was in med school. And it was a big announcement. And somebody said, hey, did you read they actually identified a molecule of emotion. And we said, well, what is it? They said, it's an endorphin. Nobody had ever heard of that word. Really? And I said, what's an endorphin? They said, well, it's an opiate. And I remember looking at the med student next to me going, those guys were in the lab too long. Yeah. Like, your brain makes an opiate, and they won the Nobel Prize, it turns out.
Really?
But, yeah. Wow. A molecule of emotion is an opiate. You have a little part of your brain that pumps out these chemicals that are, weight for weight, stronger than pure heroin. Really? That's how heroin works. It pretends to look like your own endorphins.
So when we're saying you gotta go get a high, it's
serious.
It's like for real.
But eventually, that factory that makes dopamine, endorphins, and serotonins is going to feel like it doesn't need to work because it's getting a substitute. Okay. So it's going to work at first, and guaranteed it's going to stop working. People get there at different paces, but eventually you're going to paint yourself into a corner where it stops working. Or you take the stimulants like methamphetamine and amphetamines, Adderall, Ritalin even. The psychostimulants mostly work by going in and telling your stored up feel-good chemicals to release. Okay. Like cocaine does that too. But the problem is your brain can't keep up with that. The storage sites eventually get depleted, and pretty soon, specifically like cocaine because it's so efficient at dumping out your storage sites, cocaine poops out on you really quick. Your tolerance goes way up. If you're trying to use cocaine on a daily basis, it's going to stop really. I mean, you're going to start using and you're not going to feel anything except maybe some nervousness. You're not going to feel that high anymore.
Because your brain is actually depleted.
It has to have the storage sites. And a lot of drug addicts don't understand that. And they probably think, hey, this stuff is cut. I got ripped off. It's not working. But the problem is their brain is isn't able to respond to it. And that's usually why you see people that are doing cocaine, they take one that's a substitutor, like an opiate, because that doesn't really rely on the storage sites to be there. So a lot of times you see people taking one from each category to try to make it last longer, but those people come in with a little more homework to do in their brain, because now they've shut down their factory with the one that's substituting, like an opiate. They shut down their production, and they've depleted all their storage sites.
Okay.
So they have a little more homework to do for their brain chemistry.
Okay, so we want to get to the positive side in a minute, because that's really, really where we want to land. But we've got partying, and then the teenagers and adults are facing the drugs, alcohol, we've talked about, video games, just kind of checking out and being lazy, or eating junk food. I mean, talk about the whole side of garbage we can bring into our lives.
Yeah. I look at that and I think of it as ways to avoid life. Avoid. It's sometimes you got to escape. And meditating, you take a temporary break or something, or even surfing, you take a break. But if you're doing it with a chemical, it's going to work at first, and eventually it's not going to work.
So I've heard numbers ranging like 10, 15, 20%. What you tell me, you're the expert. What kind of percentage of the population is kind of predisposed to this kind of garbage?
Well, there's a genetic pull in some people. 15 to 20% is genetically attracted. Whether they take their first drink at 9 years old or 90 years old, they're going to have that potato chip effect. They take one, they're going to want a second one. 80% of the world does not understand that, can't relate to it at all.
So what got you from being a medical doctor from a prestigious university to getting interested in drug rehab? I mean, what got you there?
Well, I was a family doctor for 6 years straight out in Lake Elsinore.
Okay.
And in that process, I got addicted to drugs.
Oh.
And drinking.
Okay.
When I was 10 years old, I had a passion. I wanted to be a doctor. I don't know exactly where I wanted to be Albert Schweitzer. I read a book called The Bush Doctor, Dr. Albert Schweitzer in Africa. And my grandma gave me a little nudge saying, you look like a surgeon. And she, because I said I wanted to be one. She said, you know what? You have the hands of a surgeon. Anyways, from that point on, I was going for it. And I did experiment with alcohol and marijuana and stuff. But that passion, that natural high in me survived until I graduated from med school, started my own practice, and then it switched. My attraction to drugs, because I had achieved what I wanted, So now I'm a doctor, I'm practicing medicine, I'm doing all this dream came true, and now drugs started to rob me of that. I thought I was smarter than the alcoholics, as those people. I knew physiology, I knew pharmacology, I knew how drugs worked, how they didn't work, and all that stuff. And I could be more powerful and smarter, and I could find the combinations of chemicals to be happy.
Really?
Take a chemical and be happy. And I was like...
So you're one of the 10, 15, 20%?
Yeah, it runs my family. Everybody drinks too much.
Okay,
and,
gotcha.
Which means they some people drink a lot, but they're not really alcoholics.
Right.
Where you cross the line where you say you're an addicted person or alcoholic is you start experiencing negative consequences and it doesn't stop you. Continued use despite the negative consequences. That's all my patients fit that criteria. It has nothing to do with how much you're drinking or what drug you're taking or how frequently you're taking it. You're losing your liver, you're losing your job, you're losing your spouse. It doesn't stop you. You keep going. That's what's unique in somebody that crosses that line as an addiction.
Okay, did you cross the line yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I crashed cars and woke up in emergency rooms, and it was pretty hopeless at a certain point because you realize the drugs stop working.
Right.
And I tried them all.
Yeah.
I tried all different combinations, and I was 36 years old, family doctor, and kind of suicidally depressed at that point because I realized I'm not going to live very long if I keep doing this.
Right.
But I can't even imagine at that point trying to live without the drugs.
Okay.
Because I painted myself into that corner physiologically. My own homemade feel-good chemicals were all shut down. And whenever I quit, I went through this really horrible feeling of depression and despair. and I didn't like myself and I never felt good enough and all these things that actually feed into an addiction. If you hate yourself or beat yourself up and you're full of grief and anger and then take a chemical, it actually makes the drugs work better.
Wow.
If you have negative thinking, it almost, actually, that's one of the requirements if you cross that line where negative things aren't stopping you. The payoff is that you're numbing some negative emotional baggage.
Okay.
You know? Like if you didn't have any negative emotional baggage,
Right.
and you took a bunch of drugs, it really doesn't help that much. It has a lot of side effects.
Okay.
But if you're full of anger and guilt, resentment and inferiority and unworthiness, it's a perfect little dance. And that's what I see now in high school. The kids that are coming into high school without an addiction, a healthy passion, a dream, you know, a gift, a mission, a purpose.
Right.
They're more easily attracted to taking the chemical. They take a chemical, they're going to be very attracted to that.
Okay.
A kid that has a dream and a passion, he doesn't want to miss out on that. And he knows the drug is going to rob him of that. Doesn't
Right.
want to mess with his brain.
Well, tell us more about picking your passion. So I know
Yeah.
you've, sat down and had long conversations with
Yeah.
a lot of high school kids.
Yeah.
And they're in that juncture of life where they're kind of, going from, that transition from childhood to adulthood.
Yes.
And they've left behind junior high school or middle school. They're now in high school and they think partying's the big thing. And they got some really big decisions to make. Am I going to be a partier or am I going to have a passion that's legit? I mean, what does that fork in the road look like?
Well, most of the kids that made it through high school, all 4 years without a drink or a drug, a kid from the other side, decided that they were going to do that by the time they were 6th grade. For sure, before high school, they visualized themselves going through high school without ever taking a drink or a drug.
Okay.
So that's the audience that we're trying to approach now, is trying to cultivate that passion, a natural high and a healthy way to get happy and to get in touch with your passion, your purpose, and your gifts in life.
Yeah.
We're trying to promote that at least until you get to 21. Because after 21, your prefrontal cortex, your judgment center in your brain is functioning better. If you get trapped by a drug, you can realize it, and you can feel it robbing you of your natural passion. Plus, by 21, you've also gotten some tools on how to enjoy life and get through the struggle. You've got some emotional tools. So if you get into a problem with drugs, you can get out quicker, and one treatment works, and things like that. People don't realize, if you've never done a drink or a drug or a cigarette by the age 21, it's almost unheard of to have a full-on addiction as an adult.
Really?
After that. Because you can pick up on things faster. Drugs don't work that well because you have other tools, you know how to do it without a drug.
Okay.
And your brain is already, it's been organized and built up, so your judgment center is working.
Okay. So in other words, the development years where your brain is developing gets up to 21. That's where it's really essential to stay away from this stuff. Once you're 21, you can, if you are going to drink, you drink more responsibly. Right. You're less prone to the spiral downward, and you can make more intelligent decisions.
Drinking and doing drugs as an adolescent is completely different physiologically than when you're in your 20s.
Okay. So this remarkable documentary that you put together, A Kid from the Other Side, tell us how that whole project came to be.
Well, it only took me 28 years of studying the problem to realize, hey, maybe we should study the solution.
Oh.
Because doctors are trained to look for the pathology.
Okay.
Study the disease, and we don't study health that much.
Right.
So it took me a while. It's a study on kids that are seniors in high school that made it all the way through 4 years of high school without ever trying a drink or a drug.
Wow.
Not once. And they had a blast. And they talk about partying in a way when they share their passion, gifts, and getting naturally high. And they're not boring.
Yeah.
They have Rasta hair and crazy clothes and play weird music and drive crazy cars and surfing and skateboarding crazy stuff, and they never take a drink or a drug. Every one of these kids, we didn't ask them what to say. We just found them, turned on the camera, and said, talk.
Okay.
And that was it.
So this thing's totally unscripted. You just went out to the high schools, put some flyers up. You found some kids that had never taken a drink, never drugged, and No script, just tell us your story, and here's what we got.
Right.
Okay, let's watch some clips.
All my life, my mom struggled with drug abuse, whether it was hardcore drugs or abusing prescription pills. She really struggled with that throughout her whole entire life. And seeing that, I mean, it was horrific. So it completely scarred me from wanting to ever try drugs or be around drugs.
My brother passed away 4 years ago from prescription drugs, and I just learned from him. He told me to never touch a drug, and because he knew what it was doing to him and he couldn't stop.
When a person decides to do drugs, they think it's my life. It's only going to affect me. But the people that they surround themselves with, their friends, start to notice it. They start to change. And then it's their family, because the person that they grew up with, knowing, is completely gone.
My dad died of an overdose, but I'm not my dad. And I think that's a real blessing for me to know that I'm my own self, and that I don't have to follow the path of my brother and my dad and my uncle and my grandpa and my great-grandpa. My mom and my grandma and my aunt, I don't have to follow any of them because I'm myself. I think something that I have that my family doesn't have is the fact that I know I have a future. I know that I have something coming for me that I'm really excited about. And unfortunately, my family just didn't see it. And for anyone who has a situation like this, they just need to remember that they're not their family either. They have their own lives, and they can make the decision to not do what their family has done.
Just by being sober, you can be such an impact to other people, and you realize how empty people are in that scene, or how, to me, it's like they're not really having fun. They're trying to fill a void that they can fill by doing other stuff with their life, but they just have been told, oh, partying is the solution,
People don't do drugs to become an addict. They do it for fun, and sometimes it just takes over, and I would never want to even put myself in that position to be taken over and not be able to voluntarily do something and have it just consume me. And I have goals in my life, and I think if I was even on drugs, I would never be able to accomplish them.
If you're doing something you love, though, that's safe for you and something that's gonna bring you so much more joy, like playing music for me, it's just like so much easier than partying, because I know like my parents are gonna be fine with it, and it's gonna make other people happy too, like hearing the music that I write or play, and it's just so much more fun. Like, you're actually relieving all your stress instead of partying and worrying about what other people are going to think of you.
I'll just say to stick in school and look for a passion, or look for something you really want to do and chase after it.
Just find your little niche that you can be yourself in, and you don't have to put on this facade for. There's so many different things you can do and explore that I think just need to try them out.
I never want to be dependent on something to bring me happiness. I want to seek other things to find happiness, and I've found that so far, so I'm going to keep doing what I love.
I would rather, do something fun like playing sports or studying, just to get myself through high school and good grades, because that's what's going to help me out in life. I like to, be active with friends and stuff instead of just partying and drinking, because that's way better than messing your bodies up with all these chemicals and drugs and stuff, because it's not going to help you at all,
I don't even know if there would be a time that I could even find time to even get into that stuff, just because I busy myself with important things that can help me in my future and not things that will distract me from my goals.
Cars have been my passion since I was a little kid. I've spent, I don't know how many countless hours working on my car. It keeps me out of the party scene because I know what I want to do with my life. I know exactly what I want to do. So it does me good knowing that I have a path for my life, and I don't want to mess it up throwing it over some party. Parties, they haven't been everything that high school has carved them out to be. They painted them out to be such a fulfilling atmosphere, that's where you belong and that's where you should be. And for me, it wasn't always like that. When I work on my car, I feel like this is where I belong and this is what I'm meant to do, because everything just kind of works. When you find your passion, that's something that you never get that feeling again, you know? And it's not something that you're pressured into, it's something that you seek out. So when you find your passion, you commit to it, because there's no better feeling in the world. So when you get offered those drugs or that drink, you never want to take the chance of throwing all of that away.
A lot of students see drinking as having a fun time and fitting in, but with clubs and sports, you're also having a good time and fitting in a positive way.
If you get yourself into a club or an activity, it's more of a long term, because it's something you'll be able to continue and do for a good majority of your life. Whereas these people who go out and do drugs and alcohol every night because that's what makes them feel good, they won't be able to live to do those things in the long run, because what they love to do is ultimately killing them.
I love living life sober. I love living life just getting a natural high of life. I wake up every day with a smile on my face because I'm alive, you know? I woke up. So for me to wake up every morning says to me, like, what can I do with my life? How much can I give?
Try to stay true to yourself and not have anyone affect you. You have to think about yourself before listening to anybody else.
You could have all the right morals like your parents handed down, your grandparents handed down, or like just in your mind, but if you're around bad people or bad company, your morals are going to shift. You know, and that might be right away, that might be in months, that might be in years, but you'll look back and say, how did I get here? How is that possible? You know,
it's hard to make those right decisions sometimes, and you know, those right decisions can lead to other people making the right decisions as well.
Ultimately, it's all up to you whether you have, a good environment or a bad environment. It's your choice if you want to, keep the cycle going of negativity, or you can change things.
It's a lot better to have 2 or 3 friends that really have your back. They'll always be there for you.
The friendships you want to keep are the ones that are real, and someone who would support you in not doing that, and someone who wouldn't judge you for not drinking alcohol and going to parties. I mean, in high school, I wasn't invited to very many parties because everyone knew I didn't do drugs or drink. So that's fine. Like, I had my good, close group of friends, and that's all I needed. I had a great time in high school.
Friends are a huge part of making smart decisions. I know in high school or even in middle school, it starts so young to have peer pressure. Everyone's like, oh, do you want to try this or do you want to try that? Why not eliminate most of the peer pressure and hang out with people that are interested in the same hobbies, the same passions, the same dreams? I think it's very important to surround yourself with good people.
Your friends and your peers really look up to you more than you know.
You'd never realize the people you hang out with, it's just small steps to that big downfall, and it can really hurt, and it hurts everyone.
You only get one life to live. Why would you want to sit there not doing something that you're passionate about? I mean, everyone has a passion. I mean, why wouldn't you want to fulfill your dreams?
I don't want to be that kid who made bad decisions, hurt their family, hurt their friends, hurt their future. I want to be the complete opposite.
One person can affect so many other people, you know? So if we can have a bunch of these kids in high school saying, no, we're going to, they will refuse to do that, then people will say, okay, well, if you can do it and he can do it, then why can't I do it?
Wow, that is insane. I mean, those kids, they're inspirational. They're doing like crazy great stuff with their lives. Right. And if anybody's got a legit high, these kids have got it.
I know. I think a lot of people think, especially even in recovery, they think, well, I can't get off my alcohol and drugs. I'm going to be boring.
Yeah.
And life is going to be dull.
Right.
And somber. Because if you look up sober, one way to look at it is somber, subdued, unadventurous, quiet, drab, plain, serious, and sensible.
That sounds boring.
Yeah. That's not worth going through my treatment center, paying all this time, trying to get off drugs. That's not worth it. That's not the goal to be mediocre even.
Right.
Or even average.
So if you don't want to be sober, what are you looking for?
Well, that's what I looked up. And I chose the word, for some reason, ridiculous. Because some of these kids that I learned from that have never done a drink or drug,
Right.
they look like ridiculously happy.
Okay.
You know, so laughable, humorous, funny, comical, silly, ludicrous, oddball, amusing, outrageous, unbelievable, incredible. That should be the definition of sobriety.
Yeah.
And they forget that you can get there. The problem is it takes 90 days for your brain to repair. You're not stuck with the same brain you have right now for the rest of your life. You're going to be healing. You're starting a 90-day brain healing adventure.
Okay.
And for the next 90 days, you're going to be on a roller coaster, impulsivity, depressed, kind of easy, insomnia. Even if you're doing all the right things, exercising, eating right, doing steps, praying, meditating, it takes about 90 days to get your brain capable of having all of its endorphins back and capable of having more good days than bad days.
So this documentary, what did you learn about what passion is?
Yeah, when I look at all these different types of passion, it explains why it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, some things it's dancing, some people it's skiing. You know, you have to find your own thing that turns you on.
Yeah.
You know, and we interviewed these kids, and there was a certain point where I always ask them, like, how do you get high in life in a way, or what turns you on, or what's
What's your thing?
What would you do even if you didn't get paid for it? And
Right.
they all immediately, you can tell from their body posture, oh, I'm in the band, or I play guitar, or I'm playing basketball, and I'm the team captain.
Right.
You know, but one thing I learned was from some of these kids, they weren't perfect at it.
Yeah.
I mean, this one gal, she was short, and she said, I play basketball.
Okay.
Really? You play? Where do you play? In my driveway. Can we, when we get to the film, can we film you? No. Well, what do you, I mean, what does your parents say? Well, I'm like into basketball, and my parents probably want me to go to law school or med school or something. And I wanted to call up the parents and say, no, just, she's short, but maybe she could own a basketball team, or maybe she could be the announcer for one, or the trainer for one, or something. You just need to find, instead of trying to change somebody,
Trying to force it.
cultivate, like parents need to cultivate it. So instead of trying to change it and force it,
Okay.
and put your thing on your kid instead of letting your kid decide for themselves.
I love
this
that.
path, you
So
know.
these kids had all identified a passion, and it wasn't to show off. It wasn't
Yeah.
to make money. It wasn't to.
It's not a performance.
It's not
to get your approval.
Right.
It just
It's
happens
just like
to
it
turn them
works
on.
for me.
Yeah, and you don't
Okay.
have to be perfect at it. That's what really got me excited.
I
you know?
love that.
Yeah.
Those are some. They kind of go against what a lot of people would think.
Right.
Right. Okay. So we got music. We got reading, we got dancing, drawing, extreme, skiing, traveling, rock climbing, cooking. I mean, there's a long list of ways to get high.
And you can hear that when we do these, we call them drug assemblies. We go to middle schools. We don't even talk about drugs that much.
Yeah.
We don't show them blood and needles and car wrecks or anything like that.
Right.
But we cultivate passion. So we show them the video, and then we bring it up into sharing their own passion. That goes, I mean, you get 400 middle school kids, and you open it up, the discussion, like, do you want to tell us what you're passionate about? They go bananas. You have to notify the school staff that it's going to go wild, because everybody's jumping out of their seats saying, I want to be a pediatric plastic surgeon. I want to go to UC Davis Veterinary School. They're wild, which is good. They don't have a prefrontal cortex, the part of their brain that's the judgment center, and the one that's the common sense.
Right.
It's good that our creator made us that way.
Right.
Because then you can think out of the box. You do these things that part of your brain thinks is impossible. That's part of a definition of passion too.
Yeah. Part
of your brain has to think that it's kind of impossible. I mean, if you're doing something and you know it's possible, and all you have to do is this year and that and do this, and you're going to achieve this, that's work. But passion is you got this goal, and you kind of don't see how it's going to go, but you're going to do it anyways.
So on this passion thing, what's interesting is, like, my son loves surfing. Right. And what's crazy about it, he's out there with all his buddies, they're surfing. It's not to impress anybody. The sun sets, he's the last one out there.
Wow.
He's not trying to impress all the girls on the beach.
Right.
He just loves it.
Yeah.
And I got a telephoto lens. Yeah. And I take pictures of him, and I can zoom right in on his face. I may be on the shore, and I can see the bliss on his face.
Yeah.
And he's really, really good. And it's just pure joy. I love the guitar, but I'm one of the guys who would say, no, you're not filming me, because honestly, I'm not that good.
Yeah.
I played for years and years, and for someone who hasn't, ever played, I might sound okay, but I played in a band and I realized I didn't have the gene, but I don't care. I love it. You know what I mean?
That's it.
So it doesn't have to be something to perform or show off. It's just your thing, whatever does it for you.
When we were casting for this and interviewing the kids, one of them said, when I got to that question about what do you do to get high and what's your natural gifts, and he said, I play the bass guitar. And I said, oh, really? When we get to the filming part, can we film you? No.
Okay.
Are you in a band? No. And that's why I kind of backed off. I kind of felt uncomfortable. But then later on, I realized the pattern is it's not a performance. It's not for your approval. It just makes you happy.
It's your thing.
And you do it. And you don't have to be perfect or anything.
Okay.
It's just your thing.
That is really revealing.
Yeah.
I mean, that point alone is epic. So what is, I got to ask you, what's your passion?
Okay, so I'm 67 years old, semi-retired. I found this new way of looking at the problem. I semi-retired about 4 years ago, kind of in this thought that, well, at least we saved 17,000 people, or we helped them out, and the big picture's better. But really, from when I started 30 years ago, the big picture's worse. Kids are using drugs much younger. They're dying before they're even addicted. Drugs are much more potent and cheaper than they were 30 years ago.
Right.
The big picture is actually worse.
Wow.
So that's when I said I'm going to study the solution. I'm going to study the answer and promote that. So my dream is, imagine this, and it'd be nice to get more and more people just thinking about, imagine 99% of the kids going through all high schools never taking a drink or a drug, even a cigarette, for all 4 years. Just even imagining that will help.
Yeah.
Because a couple 100,000 people, just picture that, it creates a certain energy and things start to fall into place. So that's my passion right now, is at least to start that. Because what we're doing now isn't working. It's almost like we're thriving off the problem. The criminal justice system is full, big pharma is making a lot of money, the drug cartels, even the drug rehab industry is actually thriving off the problem, and nobody's really focusing on stopping, I hate that word, stopping new customers. I've actually heard that before.
Yeah.
Stopping the problem before it starts.
We do need kids that never try drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
Totally agree. But let me ask you a question. Let's say a kid took a drink and didn't like it, or took a puff of pot or whatever. Is it over for them?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
If you catch it early enough, you can help them identify what is it that they want that chemical to do for them that they can't do on their own without it.
Okay.
So there's counselors and there's family counseling, and frequently what we find too is the parents are chemical coping too.
Okay.
And they're drinking a little, or they're marijuana, and they, and it's hard for them to say, hey, you shouldn't be trying marijuana.
Right.
Because you're the team captain of the football team and you're getting straight A's, and parents will try to defend them. My kid deserves to relax and do a little marijuana on weekends.
Right.
But they don't understand the biology and physiology of what they're doing.
Right. So you use the term chemical coping, which I have to be honest, I had never heard that term before, other than when you just brought it up.
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense that life is tough.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress in society, and the way to deal with it is to get high. So some people are doing the chemical coping, and some are doing the passion coping. Or what would you call that side of it?
Yeah. Passion coping, that's a good way to put it. There's the natural high.
The natural high.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. So with these kids that are at this juncture, what kind of possessed some to go down a dark road and some take the high road?
They all these kids had somebody that nudged them, a coach or uncle or the parents or the minister. The most common one was grandparents.
Really?
That was the most common one. Grandparents, turns out, they have a lot of influence on their kids, more than they think. Because a grandparent could say something and a parent could say the same thing and would go backwards.
Wow.
They're too close.
Okay.
So grandparents was taught. Parents, as far as the list of people that gave you that nudge, parents, I would put down around 7th place.
Yeah. So we want to basically get the word out on how to get high, and we want to create a bunch of nudgers.
Yeah,
exactly. Really, we want the ministers, the pastors, the counselors, the teachers, the coaches, the grandparents, and even the number 7 parents to nudge.
Exactly, and the peer groups. We're trying to create the impression that, a lot of kids don't do drugs and don't drink, and they have a blast.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get that percentage up there to reach a tipping point where it's more cool not to do drugs. And it might even be, if we get up to 30, or for sure, if you get up to 40% of the kids going through high schools without ever trying to drink or drug, it's going to all of a sudden go to 90%.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do, the nudge from the peers. And when you talk to these kids from the other side, I ask them, like, how many of your friends did what you did? But some of them say none, or 1, or 2. So I would say, what did all those other people say about you and your couple of friends? And that I wish I had filmed, because it looked like they never even thought of that. It's like, why would I care what they say about me? They're doing drugs.
Boom.
And they say they're the rebel. I'm the rebel. I'm not doing drugs.
I love that.
So we're trying to create that. Like, the real rebels here are the kids that are learning about the lessons behind suffering and pain and struggling and growing from that and actually becoming happier and better, enjoying life.
Yeah.
They're the rebels. The people doing drugs are the wimps.
Yeah, I get it. Because, the reality is you're not going to do the extreme skiing or the motocross and doing flips. I was just in Park City a few days ago skiing, and they had these teenagers doing flips, triple somersaults. You're not going to do that loaded.
Yeah.
If you're high, you're going to die. I mean, there's not a happy ending with that.
Yeah.
And the people that do all this extreme cool stuff, there's no question they're over the tipping point. Who would not want to do that kind of stuff? It's so thrilling, and the drug thing is just depressing. So when's the right time to nudge? Is it college, high school, elementary school? When is it?
Yeah, it's the middle schools. And some of these kids that we filmed, actually, all of them pretty much by 6th grade visualized themselves going through high school without a drink or drug. Some of them said 6 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They pictured that. So I've tried this video in high schools, and I've done the drug assemblies and stuff. And the last one I did, because I was kind of getting disappointed, you only got so much time and energy to focus. So I went to a 10th grade class, and it was a computer education class, and there was like 40 kids there, and we were doing this talk, and the teacher didn't know me, but knew we were going to talk about passion. So he introduced us, saying, hey, has anyone ever had something in the last 24 hours that they're really passionate about? Total silence. Like, if you said that to 7th graders, you'd go crazy. Everybody's silent. And one little kid in the very front, he had his button, and he did a lot of computers.
Yeah, okay.
I'll profile him.
Well, I'll be working for him someday.
Yeah, all right. He was a computer nerd. Okay, so I hate that. But it was this classic. He was sitting in the front row, and his hand's shaking. He doesn't see that nobody else is raising their hand. And the teacher goes, yeah. He goes, I went on a date, my first date last night.
All right.
And everybody gave him applause. And then he heard the applause, and he goes, and we danced.
All right.
And then everybody gave him like a standing ovation. And we said, that's it.
Boom.
That's our whole lecture.
Okay.
You're naturally high even right now.
Right.
He was like on fire.
Okay, so the right timing is anywhere from elementary, middle school, high school. They've kind of already gotten into their groove.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the sweet spot is middle school.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay. Dr. Headrick, this is awesome. How do people get a hold of you if they want to watch the video? What do we do?
Well, we have a nonprofit. It's called kftos.org.
Okay.
Kids from the Other Side.
Okay.
And it has the documentary. It has a little 3-minute cartoon, because the target audience is 7th graders.
Okay.
So a 3-minute cartoon sets the stage, and then a 15-minute documentary on kids from the other side being interviewed.
Thank you for joining us on this episode on how to get high. Hopefully you got the key points. The key points chemical coping, bad idea, never a happy ending. The sweet spot to get the message to kids is in middle school or even elementary school, and they need a nudge. They need some intelligent person to say, hey, look, you got choices in front of you, and pick your passion. Don't pick a poison, pick your passion, and say no to the partying. It's completely unnecessary. And do something really fantastic. So we ask you to share this video, do the like thing, keep getting the word out, and before you know it, we're going to have more and more people who are getting their highs in a positive way. Thanks for watching.